Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here, the one and only Truth Pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. You guys no doubt heard over the last couple days that the Trump administration is going to reopen the investigation into the cocaine found in the White House.
We were at a barbecue and it was getting crazy. When he started running at me, reached for the back of his pants, I just pulled out my firearm. Once the target was down so that he's not a threat anymore, I just called you guys.
The majority of programs immediately exclude you if you happen to be in a gun-free zone at the time that the incident occurs.
The strike force was called. If that doesn't happen in this case, he's still sitting at Rikers Island today.
Lawyers are like real-life superheroes because you can give people a chance to really get a second chance in life.
Folks, I use attorneys on retainer, and I suggest you do too if you carry a firearm or you do anything to protect your family. Use my code FTATF for a discount at sign up. Real quick, gonna have some really cool stuff to talk about regarding attorneys on retainer in the next couple of weeks. You'll definitely want to look probably in the next 13, 14 days for a dramatic change in the overall look in my videos in about 13 to 14 days. I'm talking about a wild change. If nothing else, at least to the background and the scenery regarding my videos, and that's going to be loosely tied with attorneys on retainer. Yeah, so they're going to open up the investigation to determine whose cocaine was in the White House. Don't you know whose cocaine was in the White House? I do. I know it was Hunter Biden's. And if it wasn't Hunter Biden's, it was some other Democrat, somebody that they don't want to announce. So all that's been covered up. Does the Trump administration really think that all the receipts are still laying around that are going to show whose that actually is? Do they not think that the cameras and any video has already been scrubbed? Any evidence whatsoever is gone? Again, the people at the top wanted all that to go away. So the people down below them were doing their bidding. They're not going to find anything. It's going to be the same old thing, reports inconclusive or some stupid stuff like that. Is this a bone that Bonino and Kash Patel and, of course, Pam Bondi are throwing us because none of us are happy with the way things are going? You know what? I'd like to, if we're taking requests here, I'd like to make a suggestion. Let's not worry about the cocaine. Because, again, we kind of know where that is. And it's not a big deal to me because while that is a vulgar thing that they do and they get away with, doesn't affect my taxes. Quite frankly, it simply doesn't affect it. So if somebody's getting high on White House property, it's not really affecting me. As long as they're not touching the buttons on the nuclear bombs and things like that, yeah, not real worried about that. This is where people are mistaking what means something to us. It's not the most popular headlines that I want you to investigate. I want you to investigate the things that touch me. The voter, the American, the person who has to deal with these bogus policies and bogus taxes and bogus overspending. You need some examples? I can help you there. Election fraud. Yeah, we definitely know at this point in the 2020 election, we had election fraud. In fact, lots of people have been busted with election fraud. And I know it goes deeper. I know it goes way more in depth than what we've talked about. Nothing's happening and no high-level people are going to jail. Yes, some low-level people are going to jail. No high-level people are going to jail. If this problem is not fixed, and if you're only shooting a shot across the bow to warn these people, it's going to continue to happen. You have to lock these people away and send a message that they will never see their families again to try to deter people in the future from doing the same exact thing all over again. Speaking of the 2020 election, U.S. intelligence investigating whether FBI involved in 2021 Capitol riot. Okay, guys, I think all of us can agree because of everything that came out. So far, the last thing that I heard and saw was that the FBI acknowledged that 29 of their people, not necessarily payrolled FBI people, they might be confidential informants, but nevertheless, there were people working directly with, not indirectly, not just some guy that knew somebody from the FBI. There are people who worked with, received a paid check, maybe not on the payroll of the FBI, but certainly as a subcontractor, money from the federal government, more specifically the FBI, who were involved in the January 6th protests. Now, we have seen lots of stuff on here, lots of stuff. What I want to know is who was involved. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Bondi, You all should have records of all that. But again, do you think the receipts are just left lying around? I'm sure most of this stuff was discussed in a very covert way, so there's probably no trail of it anyway. But there are people out there. Start imprisoning FBI agents who were involved and see if you don't get some whistleblowers. If there's no consequences, then nobody cares. So why would one of the other FBI agents step out of line and rat out one of the other ones that was involved? Because he knows at this point nothing's going to happen to him. So why would I jeopardize my career within the FBI by ratting out one of my own unless something's going to happen? You start putting these people in prison who were part of this riot and this Capitol protest, put them, those who helped organize this to make it look like it was somebody on the right, put them in prison, and I think you're going to start to see whistleblowers come out. Speaking of January 6th, I think the congressional committee that hid a lot of the information, they stumbled across information that showed that this was not a, quote, riot. And they hid that information because they did not want people to see that it was not as bad as they were saying. Plus, there's no doubt in my mind that they also hid video evidence and likely other evidence that showed that the FBI and various people within the government were also involved in making this happen to put this stain on Trump. And of course, the old faithful, the Epstein client list. Now look, I don't want to confuse this with the flight log. Not saying that that's totally innocent, but that's not what I'm looking for. I don't want the flight log. I don't want to know people that he knew. I don't want to know who went to his apartment in New York. Again, I didn't go, so I know that it's likely some pretty bad people that went. But that's not proof of what they did to these young people. I want a client list, a John list, whatever you call it, because there was something. Maxwell went to prison. Epstein was locked up. When Maxwell was convicted, it was because she had, quote, trafficked people for sexual whatever, favors, underage people. You understand what I'm saying, right? She went to jail for coordinating underage stuff with young people, meaning they had proof that she had coordinated underage activities with young people. That means there was Maxwell, who was the pimp. There was the underage girls who were the victims. There was a third party. Whether it's one person, which we know is not true, or 1,000, those are the ones we want to know about. Now, we understand, and I do, I'm not that naive, I know why we'll likely never know. People way high up in Congress, world leaders, people that are big-time entertainment people, if you want to call it that. I don't find it entertaining, but other people do. I'm talking about musician people. I'm talking about actors and actresses. There are people out there, the Bill Gates of the world, probably him specifically. There are a lot of people out there that if you went and grabbed and locked up every single one of them, there's probably various sectors of the world regarding business, military, the running of various countries that would probably take a step back because you have to fill a big void because a very important person is now plucked out of that because they were involved in this. So I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I understand why they're trying to cover it up. A quick side note regarding that. With Patel and Bonino, more specifically Bonino, and I've had over the years a pretty high level of respect for Bonino. He came out very, very critical of the Secret Service whenever the assassination attempts happened on Trump. And I felt like he aligned with our belief system, like was echoing things that we were saying. To get in office and you're only there, 3 or 4 weeks, and you immediately suddenly say, oh, now I believe Epstein did kill himself. Really? Bonino was the one all along saying, you have to show me these things. Don't just tell me that somebody's innocent or guilty. You got to prove to me why. Tell me why you think that now. I think the same thing of him now. You have to tell me why suddenly you were such a big person as far as saying that there's no way Epstein killed himself to suddenly goes, yeah, I believe he killed himself now. Nah, dude. No, If you can't explain to me why, because you saw something that tells you otherwise, and if you can't tell me why, then that tells me that there's some other dirty stuff that I want to know about. I want to know those reasons why you can't tell me. All this stuff where they act like we're too stupid or we can't handle the truth so they don't tell us, oh, if you knew the truth, you know. No. No, I'm a big enough boy where I can handle the truth just like you can. Just because you had a couple of years of Secret Service and other little things that you did doesn't mean that you're more mentally capable of processing these things than we are. We are perfectly okay with handling that. Most of our lives, we have seen way more stuff than these people supposedly saw just because they were at a high level of some kind of other job. The average person out there, I think, sees way more than the people who operate inside these protected circles. Now, politically, yeah, obviously they've seen more than we have. But as far as real life scenarios, I've probably seen way more stuff that Dan Bongino probably couldn't process in his own mind. So let me determine who's big enough to handle that kind of stuff and just tell me what I need to know. And you know what? If I need to go get therapy or if I fall into a PTSD cloud as a result of what you told me of why you know now all of a sudden know Epstein killed himself, then cool, I got insurance. Let me handle that. And here's a big one. This is one that American families will be paying for decades and decades. The Ukraine money that was just written as in the form of a blank check to Ukraine and allowed it to go over there and then get written back to various politicians in the United States. That is money laundering. These people are corrupt. There's no way you're going to tell me that no one can find these millions and millions of dollars that suddenly are just lost. That's bullcrap. We all know what happened over there. This is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And we know that they targeted Ukraine for this very reason, where people could get rich knowing that they could always fall back on the claim that Ukraine was already corrupt before we started pumping money into it. I mean, if you want to buy dope, you go to a dope dealer. And that's what these people did. They wanted to launder money, so they went to a money launderer. And to me, this is the biggest one. You talk about writing blank checks. For COVID-19, under the guise of a pandemic, all rules were lifted and Congress spent freely, and everybody at higher levels in this federal government did whatever they wanted under the guise of being or operating under a pandemic. They did things that were unlawful, corrupt, and many of them made a lot of money. Now, I'm talking about just how it actually occurred first. How COVID actually happened to be. We know that we funded that. We know very much that the United States funded all this stuff, all this gain of function that Fauci was behind and all that. We funded all that through him and a lot of other people in the United States. We had a hand in developing this, experimenting with this, and likely had a major hand. I know we keep blaming China. We had a lot to do with that. A lot of our money funded that Wuhan Institute over there. So we're not, just because it happened in China, we can't sit back and constantly blame China. Oh, Chinese let the virus out. No, we paid for it. And that's why I think they're so pissed off about it, because we're ratting them out for releasing the virus, and they're like, dude, y'all paid for it. Speaking of COVID, there are 9 new billionaires in the world right now because of the COVID vaccine and the money that was made off of the COVID vaccine. Our government purchased gazillions of vaccines that were, quote, free to the American people. Wow, how stupid is that for American people to think that anything is free coming from a federal government. But yeah, supplied the American people, the rest of the world with vaccines, and a lot of people walked away very, very rich. Again, 9 brand new billionaires with a B, while we sit here and are going to finance that via taxes, likely for the rest of all of our lives. Somebody should go to jail for that. I'm serious. Out of all these things that I just listed, no one, I don't want to say no one has gone to jail, because with the voter fraud, some people have gone to jail, but low-level people, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm going to fix you up when you get out of jail. Just take the fall. You'll be good when you get out. I'm going to take care of you. You, my boy, right? No high-level people, no names that we recognize have gone to jail for any of this stuff. None of it. And do you think any will? I don't. I think these are made people. These are people that are in, and nobody's going to rat them out because the money is running too deep. Real quick, like before I end this, you want to talk about money running deep? You notice last week we were pretty much sidetracked on this whole thing with the big beautiful bill, right? talking about suppressors and the Short Act and all that. So I understand what our main focus was over the last 2-3 weeks. You know, one thing that happened that not a lot of people are talking about, you know how we all got so excited because Doge was finding all this wasteful and corrupt spending of money, and a lot of people couldn't explain where it was going, whether it was USAID or some of these other nonprofits and NGOs across the world. All this money, taxpayer money now, your money, going to places to fund stupid stuff that we knew they weren't funding. I mean, one-legged midgets fighting to try to figure out who can put a condom on in Uganda. No, as stupid as that sounds, that was never going to happen. There was never an intent of that happening. When you see the stupidest reason why we're funding something, we shouldn't automatically think, why are we funding that? That's stupid. We never were going to. That was going to be a check written to somebody. They never had any intention of one-legged midgets putting condoms on in Uganda. That was not a thing. The Ugandan guy's sitting over there waiting to cash the check. That's it. So that's where the fraud was. But you know what happened during last week when all that bill, the big beautiful bill, passed from Congress onto the Senate? There was a way to codify what Doge was finding and fund their efforts to continue to search and find waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government. The Republicans voted it down, not just the Democrats. We knew the Democrats would. That's why I'm not even mentioning them. We knew they were voting it down. Republicans voted it down too. Do you think the Republicans are okay with waste, fraud, and abuse? Or do you think they're okay with it because they're also getting paid? When I saw that, that told me everything I needed to know. It told me that every potential member of Congress who might be corrupt. I know some members of Congress, and I can't say that I think 100% of them are corrupt. I can't say that because I know some people that I think are very fine people over there. I know that sounds odd, but I do know some people in Congress who appear to be great people. So it's not fair for me to generalize and say all of them are corrupt. But whenever you tell me that you're not interested in further investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, that tells me that if I were able to go down that rabbit hole, your name is probably on that list somewhere. And this is the whole group coming together as a whole to cover this up in hopes that nobody ever finds this. We have to stop taking the crumbs that they throw us, like Bonino saying, oh, we're going to find out whose cocaine that was. I don't care. I don't care about the cocaine. Again, I know who it was. If you told me you found a dirty diaper full of crap hidden in the Oval Office, you don't think I don't know, already know who that belonged to? I know whose that was. Just like I know whose cocaine it was. So I don't need you going there, Dan. I need you to either quit, like get out of your position, or do your job. But again, all those calls come from higher up. We'll see. You can see my frustration. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the, oh, this'll be good for them. They'll shut up and quit asking questions if we just do this for them. Sorry, man. Sorry. I'm not there. I'm ready for the meat and potatoes. I'm tired of the salad. I'm tired of the appetizer. Give me a freaking meal. I want a rare steak on my plate, and I want it now. I'm tired of all the fixings.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. It's over.